Hi, I'm Mark, and today on the Outside Views morning video, I want to talk about the British aid for Ukraine again. An international coalition is to help Ukraine procure US F-16 fighter jets. However, the United States continues to refuse delivery. But Ukraine is a step further in its efforts to acquire modern Western fighter jets for its counterattack against Russia, thanks to Britain. Because Britain and the Netherlands want to build an international coalition to help Ukraine procure US F-16 jets. A British government spokesman said this on Tuesday, according to the PA news agency. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that France also supports it. He sees the efforts to strengthen the Ukrainian Air Force as a positive development. The United States, however, has so far refused to send the F-16 fighter jets requested by Ukraine, and this position was confirmed by US officials several times. Zelensky and the Ukrainian leadership have been trying for months to obtain modern combat aircraft from Western allies. So far, all of Ukraine's partners, and above all the United States, have largely held back on this issue. But the UK government spokesman said the Prime Minister and the Dutch Prime Minister, he means Rishi Sunak and Mark Rutte, agreed to form an international coalition to provide Ukraine with air combat resources, from training to the procurement of F-16 jets. There was initially no confirmation of this from the Dutch government. On his short tour of Europe in the past few days, Zelensky seems to have received support for the intended fighter jet coalition in France as well. Yesterday in Britain, we agreed with Rishi, the Prime Minister, that we are working on a coalition of fighter jets. Training aircraft results. That's what Zelensky said in his evening video address on Tuesday. And yesterday this was supported by French President Macron and today by Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte. That's what he also said. And he said it's a good start for the coalition. Thank you all. However, on Sunday, Macron, like German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, reacted cautiously to Zelensky's repeated calls to deliver fighter jets. During Zelensky's visit to Great Britain, Sunak announced that London wanted to train Ukrainian pilots on Western jets quite soon. The Prime Minister announced the establishment of a flight school for Ukrainian pilots. This would allow them to be trained on different types of aircraft. And on Tuesday, Sunak reiterated that Ukraine has its rightful place in NATO. That was also confirmed by the spokesman. After the renewed heavy rocket fire on Ukraine, Zelensky emphasized European cohesion. Russia is trying very hard to improve its ability to kill. We are trying very hard to improve the protection of our people. And I thank all the countries and leaders who are helping us to improve our overall air defenses. We are showing what our 100% mean and what the power of the free world means. That's what Zelensky said on Tuesday at the Council of Europe summit in Reykjavik via a video link. At the Council of Europe summit, Chancellor Olaf Scholz spoke out in favor of not cutting the bridges to the other Russia, what he called it, beyond President Vladimir Putin and his government. At some point, Russia's war against Ukraine will end, and he did that was right at the beginning of the summit meeting, to which more than 30 heads of state and government from a total of 46 member countries were coming. And one thing is certain, it will not end with a victory for Putin's imperialism, he said, because they will support Ukraine until a just peace is reached. A paradoxical frontline situation developed in the fighting for the eastern Ukrainian city of Bakhmut in the meantime. While Ukrainian troops continue to advance on the fronts around the city, Russian troops continue to push back Ukrainian defenders inside the city. Ukrainian Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar told this on Telegram. Within a few days, our troops have cleared around 20 square kilometers north and south of Bakhmut of the enemy, who in turn is advancing inside Bakhmut and completely destroying the city with its artillery. With the advance of Ukrainian troops on the flanks of the Russian armed forces, the mousetrap indicated by the Ukrainian army commander Alexei Syrsky could close further for the Russian soldiers. According to estimates by the Ukrainian Military Intelligence Service, around 400,000 Russians are currently deployed in Ukraine. The purely military component consists of around 370,000 soldiers, said Secret Service Chief Kirill Budanov on state television in Kiev. There are also around 20,000 members of the Russian Guard, that's an elite paramilitary unit in the Russian Federation. Private groups provided almost 7,000 more fighters, and the latter includes the Wagner mercenary group led by Yevgeny Prigozhin. The losses suffered by Russian troops since the invasion of Ukraine began in February last year are estimated in Kiev at almost 200,000. However, it's not clear from these statistics, which are updated daily, whether this only refers to the dead or also to the wounded. Actual figures on troop strength or casualties are not published by either conflicting party. But at their summit in Reykjavik, the 46 countries of the Council also wanted to adopt a register for war damage in Ukraine. In this way, all damage caused by the Russian war of aggression should be documented so that Russia has to take legal and financial responsibility for it. All member countries, but also observers in other states, could then join the register. The idea goes back, among other things, to a resolution of the United Nations. French President Emmanuel Macron also campaigned for the register. He said, "I call on all states to join it and actively contribute to its development." Incidentally, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak also wanted to promote a common approach to combating irregular migration at this Council of Europe summit in Iceland. It's evident that our current international system is not working, and our communities and the world's most vulnerable people are paying the price. That's what Sunak said in a statement late Monday night. We need to do more to work together across borders and across jurisdictions to end illegal migration and stop the boats. The number of people who come to Great Britain via the English Channel, mostly in small inflatable boats, has increased significantly in recent years. Sunak's Conservative Party wants to deter migrants with harsh laws and deport people who have entered the country irregularly to Rwanda, regardless of their asylum status. And this also led to a conflict with the European Court of Human Rights. Conservative hardliners in Britain called for the withdrawal from the European Convention on Human Rights. Critics, on the other hand, see the British project as a violation of international obligations. The British government has now stressed that an international legal system is needed that allows states to take the necessary steps. And this includes a reform of the so-called Rule 39 of the Court of Human Rights. Last year, judges used this clause to halt a deportation flight from Great Britain to Rwanda at the last minute, provoking fierce criticism from the Conservative British government. Sunak now wants to raise the hurdles for intervention by the ECHR in the asylum law. However, Britain has countered the impression that it's actively working to equip Ukraine with fighter jets. Before I get to the asylum part again, before I forget this, because Wallace said on Wednesday then that they will not equip them while he was on a visit to Berlin. They only want to train fighters, and the jets is a different topic. They don't have F-16s anyway, but they can train and support. That's what Wallace made out of this. And after a meeting with Wallace, the German Federal Defense Minister Boris Pistorius also confirmed that the Bundeswehr would not give any combat aircraft to Ukraine. Germany cannot play an active role there. That is what Pistorius said. But I had to inject that for a second because I almost forgot it in the first place. But Germany and Britain are providing them with air defense and a lot of other things. So they always ask for F-16. A lot of countries F-16, but neither Germany nor Britain does. But I want to quickly go back to the migration part, which was part of this council. That's why I included that in this video. The British want the rest of the world to change their rules so that it fits for their domestic politics and for their inner party struggle, so to speak. That will not happen. we have international treaties, we have international law that counts, and you cannot go and just water down international law if it doesn't suit the right-wingers in your own party. That will not happen. And Sunak failed with promises he never should have made, his party never should have made in the first place, but they made all these promises to get Brexit through in the referendum, and they made this promise to get a big majority in Parliament in 2019, and they're still making these promises to, with some miracle, win the next election. But that is something the rest of the civilized world will not play with, just to accommodate a few hardline right-winger populists in the Tory party. And that's why he tried this on the council, why I included it in this video. And the funniest thing about all of this is Britain has much less of asylum seekers, war refugees, and even refugees from the Ukraine war in Britain than many other countries. Germany took in a million people of Ukraine already, or more than a million. And we had much more refugees from other parts of the world and asylum seekers coming in than Britain in the whole of last year. And we had this already until April this year, from January to April. And so this is really just domestic politics we are talking about. Britain doesn't have an illegal migration problem. The part illegal is only the way of the entry. But according to international law, you can't punish them for that. You still have to grant them the right for a proper asylum procedure. The word illegal entry is correct in legal terms. But they still have the right that their asylum claim is to be processed under the observation of international law, which is also should be domestic law. And so that will not change. There must be ways of dealing with certain things, like the EU is discussing so-called centers at the outside of the EU, which are, or at the border of the EU, where these claims will be processed. But for this, they need to have a distribution agreement within the EU for this to work. Because everyone who has a right to asylum, they have to let them in. That is the case. If they arrive there and they get through the process in these centers, they have to get into the EU. And for this, they need a distribution agreement within the EU, which are countries like Hungary and Poland are blocking. But that is something that needs to be part of it. Of course, there are a lot of things the international community has to work on, and a lot of countries has to work on in the way of dealing with refugees and in the way of dealing with migrants, because they are two very different things I cannot stress often enough. Asylum seekers, war refugees, and migrants are three completely different things. And they have to find a different way or an adjusted way to deal with them, but the basic rights of all three remain the same, with migrants not having a right to come to any country, except there is an immigration law with certain points in it that gives them the right to come if they fulfill all the obligations of the law. Here in Germany, we don't have a proper migration law. I criticized this for ages. But nevertheless, there's a lot of work still to do, but the international law must be upheld in every case. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.